Committee, and I am going to go ahead and hand it off to Rich and Shannon. Huh? We gotta do a pledge, just like a real meeting pledge? Is that on the agenda? Who made this stuff up?
Can't make this stuff up.
Shannon, you're there. Let's pledge to the allegiance of the, yeah.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I always remind people, you only need the first three words and then we'll chime on in.
Good afternoon. Thank you for giving us this opportunity to come before you today. I think I know many of you, but don't know all of you directly, but I'm Rich Riebling. I work for Mayor Barry. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for the city. And on behalf of the entire search committee, we want to thank you for sort of taking more time out of your schedules. I know you spend a lot of time at school board meetings, but I think there's nothing more important in the city than this issue. And thank you for giving us this opportunity to sort of present some of the report and to hopefully keep this moving in a positive direction for the city. I think it's very, very, very fair to say that the school board, and I want to thank the school board for sort of reaching out and helping to start this process. I didn't know when I accepted this role from Mayor Barry that I was going to be thrust into this assignment, but it's one I accept it greatly because it is really as important, if anything, as we could do as a city. And I think it's great to see the collaboration that we've seen in the first 4 or 5 months of Mayor Barry's administration with the school board, to see us communicating and talking in a way that I think bodes well for the future and hope helps establish us as we go along this path. It has been really, frankly, really an honor to share with Shannon the work with this great distinguished group of Nashvillians who have spent really a fair amount of time over the last few weeks coming to a consensus. As I say, not everybody agrees with every word in a document, but I think to come together to present something to move us forward, I think says a lot for their dedication to Nashville and their recognition that this is such an important work going forward. And I also like to say thank you to the community that responded to the surveys. I think, Shannon, 5,000? Nearly 5,000 parents, teachers have responded to the survey and gave us their input as to what they would like to see in a new director of schools. I think that's pretty remarkable. And again, it shows the importance of this decision and how this community realizes that of all the things we could do as a community, this is probably the most important, without question, the most important thing for us to do. And it was a committee that it was sort of, again, started with this idea of the school board and a really diverse group of individuals that again, I think it's a uniquely Nashville that we're able to be different in where we come from and where we are in life, but agree on something that's so important. And I think it again sets the stage for the next step of this process and puts us in a good position going forward. So with that, I think let's get on with the, as they say, the meat of the coconut. And I'd like to turn it over to Shannon, my co-chair, who's now in the room. I should have looked to my left before I did that. Turn it over to Shannon, who can start the process and introduce the others that are going to speak to you today. Again, thank you very much. I sincerely appreciate your time here today.
Yes, thank you. So thank you again. Just to add to Rich's comments, it was a real pleasure for each of us to work in support of the school board's efforts here. This is such an important job and such an important moment for Nashville, and we hope you walk away tonight feeling energized at our prospects and also with a clear roadmap of how we can all do this together. So you have in front of you a gigantic book. I've shared with each of you ahead of time, the guts of this report, but I thought it would help for us to just take you guys through some of the high points points of both the community survey research as well as our recommendations, and then we're all here and available to answer questions individually and collectively that you may have from it. What we thought would be best, if you're okay with it, is we will kind of blow through the overview and then do questions at the end, if that's okay with everybody. And I've asked several of my colleagues on the committee to help me with this, so we'll sort of tag team it. Just as a starting point, I just, a little bit of this we've touched on, but just to set the tone for today, we all feel so incredibly good about where we are and our prospects for success. And we feel good coming out of these last 10 weeks for 4 reasons. One is that I think we feel there's a real unified citywide search that conveys which by itself conveys an important message and it will hopefully really increase our recruiting prospects. This isn't just the 9 of you, it's all of us as a city saying, let's go forward and do something extraordinary. Number 2, I think you'll find in what we're going to present, the community is remarkably aligned and unified in its view too, which just makes all of our jobs so much easier. And I think that's a great turning point moment for Nashville, just given some of the past around education issues. Third, I think the direction that our group sort of came to really lined up really nicely with what we heard from the community. I mean, we obviously started our process while the community survey was out there, so it's a little bit scary for all of us because we could come to one conclusion, the community could come to another, but we felt so good that actually once we got to the end of it, we really ended in a place really consistent with where the community ended, which just gives us greater hope that this is the right path. And then last but not least, our hope is that, unlike previous times, we've got a lot of data, a lot of information, a lot of work has gone in early on that I think can really provide a search firm a roadmap to hit the ground running much faster than may have been the case in the past. So I think we've done a lot of the due diligence and homework that a search firm might end up burning, a month or more trying to do themselves. And I think we've done it in an authentically Nashville and local way, as opposed to having somebody from the outside who doesn't know our community as well trying to sift through that and sort through that. So for that reason, we all start really feeling very positive. Just a reminder, we were asked to look at 3 things. One is, what does Nashville need? What are our biggest challenges? How do we stack up against other districts? Where are the things we're doing really well? What are the things that we need to work on? What does that all mean for what kind of leader we need? Second is, who might fit that profile? Our job was not to come up and say, here's 3 final candidates, right? Our job was to say, what are the districts? If this is what we need, what are the districts and people and entities that are doing some of the more interesting work or getting some of the kinds of results we aspire to get? And at least that provides a starting point for where does a search firm go to look for strong leaders. And then third was to really look at, are we being maximally competitive in the marketplace? There are a lot of other school districts in the midst of searches. We want to make sure we are able to actually go out there and not just get somebody average, but get somebody extraordinary. And we want to make sure that we collectively as a city can put forth a package that's highly competitive in that environment. So we did do some work, compensation analysis and other things to just be able to give you guys a little more information to build a really competitive package. So that was our 3-part charge. And with that, I'm going to turn it to Janet to take us through the survey results, and then I'll come back up and talk about recommendations.
Thank you, Shannon. Good afternoon. My name is Janet Miller. I know many of you. I am currently the CEO for Colliers International, which is a local commercial real estate company. Many of you knew me from my prior life where I was at the Nashville Chamber for 20 years doing economic development. And this has been such a privilege to serve, and I want to thank you for your leadership because I can't think of anything more important for the city. So thank you for that honor. So my charge today is to hit the top line of what the community is saying. And if you look at the overarching, there's really three things that come out through this that I believe you'll see. Number one is this is a community that is incredibly engaged and is speaking out in this process. If you look at the numbers alone, and you've heard them over and over, but almost 5,000 community members. I was so excited. 1/3 of all of the teachers that we have responded to the survey, 2,200 parents. So engaged, excited community, also remarkably aligned community, which is very helpful to me as we go through a process like that. So a lot of alignment between parents, between teachers, between community leaders. So that was encouraging. And the third thing is we really feel, after looking at the community, that there is a real desire for a bold leadership position by this community. And I think all of my peers on the committee want you to know that we are here behind you to help you, because we believe that bold leadership and doing things a little differently might be the way to go on this. So let me hit the top line of what we heard. So number one is Nashvillians want someone who can bring about more systemic change to the schools. So we had a lot of discussion about the word change agent, which can have a negative connotation, and we all agreed this is not change for change's sake. However, we feel like in order to accelerate progress, that having somebody who is comfortable in a changing environment would be a quality that we'd be interested in, and 81% of the respondents agreed with that assessment. Number two, people are looking for something that's not business as usual, so not something that's a less conventional, more innovative approach, with 71% saying they prefer someone who is an innovative. Outside the box is an overused term, but we all know what it means. Somebody who may go at this from a little different direction. Number three, so many recognized the promising spots and the programs in Metro schools. So we heard a lot about that, and I'll touch on that. However, we did come out with a number of alignment that 42% of the surveyed respondents did say that they believe that we are on the wrong track. So again, we felt like that was a fact that does support the concept of innovation and change, and that's really what we took away from that. Number three is, this was super interesting. There is amazing alignment between the groups. So this, teachers and parents were remarkably aligned on the top issues. So on the right track, wrong track, there was absolutely no gap between the audiences. Tolerance for change, which can be a scary thing, very little gap between the audiences. Same thing for the conventional and out of the box. So we felt like that was very representative of the alignment that we saw throughout the community process. This was our favorite chart. We talked about this chart a lot, and it's kind of hard to see, but it shows the items that are the most important to all the respondents by category. And if you'll see, the color of the boxes as they shift show, again, remarkable alignment. So the top issues that all of the audiences seem to focus on were, number one, talent, right? We've got to be sure we are getting the best and brightest talent in the system. Number two is academic improvements. We've made such great strides. That is so important across the board to the audiences. And those were the top two. And then academic improvements and testing. I'm a little outside the education realm, so I've learned a lot, and I understand testing is a major issue, and we understand there's great alignment around that issue as well. Next up, we talked a little bit about is what are the skill set that we really, really need to see in this new leader. And again, these were very aligned, and they were, the number one was educational experience. Kind of sounds like a no-brainer, but it's got to be somebody who understands and has educational experience. Also, experience with decentralization and school autonomy was a desired quality, and those were really the top two. A proven educational leader, and then an experience leading change, followed by somebody who has improved low-performing schools. So those were the top five as far as qualities of a new leader. There are so many bright spots that came up over and over in this survey that is going on in metro schools, and we feel like this is a great selling point in the recruitment process. But we heard lots about the amazing high school academies, the arts and gifted library literacy programs, the school options. Academic improvements were brought out again and again, which I think is a great testament to this group. And the fact that leaders and teachers are so supportive is something that was a real bright spot in the survey. So the last point that I have to cover is, I love this question, how are we going to know when this person is successful? So if we fast forward a year after they've been here, how will we know that they are successful? And this was really interesting. The top 2 qualities were off the charts, the number 1 and 2. And that is, number 1 is visibility. And that is around being much more visible in the schools, and not just in the schools, but visiting schools frequently, just to be a much more visible face in the community. And then number 2 was all around listening skills. So somebody who can come in and demonstrate that they are listening, and listening in an intentional way, was the number 2 item. So with that, I will conclude by saying engaged community, aligned community, and a community that is completely behind you and your efforts to take us to the next level of education. So with that, I'm going to hand it back over to my friend Shannon.
Thank you. Okay, so let's hit recommendations that are aligned to those community views. We have a total of 10. The first is, and I think this sort of goes without saying, but let's say it anyway just to be sure. This should be a very aggressive national search to find a top-notch leader. What does that mean? It means we should really cast the net wide and focus on a real proactive recruiting effort, not simply an application process. And I've heard many of you say those same things publicly, so I know you share that sentiment. The second is that this search needs to be grounded in a real sense of clarity about what it is that we're seeking, and it's got to have the full commitment of this entire board to be open to different types of candidates that could then fit that profile. So, real clarity, instead of here's all the things we want, let's say all the things we want, but let's be really clear, what are the handful of things that are non-negotiable, that we have to see don't bring us a candidate search firm if they don't at least meet this basic litmus test, okay? Number 3 is, so let's talk about what that litmus test is. Where we sort of came out, you talk about the 3 legs of the stool, so this is going to be the 4 walls of the schoolhouse. We think there are 4 big things that we've got to be aggressively looking for in a leader. One is an ability of someone to really cast a true vision for where the school system is going and build community behind that vision. And, that's not to say we know there is a strong strategic plan in place in the district, but I think a vision is something that really, with crystal clear clarity, sets some real priorities. So there are lots of things in our strategic plan that we must do, but we've got to be clear with the community, what are the 3, 4, or 5 things that we are trying to go deep on, and how is it that the community fits into those things? Because I think when you see such division about are we on the right track or on the wrong track, or are we just, we don't know, we're in the middle, I think that's probably more than anything else reflective of we're not sure what the plan is. And so somebody who has a real ability to really with laser focus say, here are the drivers of change and improvement. Here's how we're going to get there. Here are the metrics that we will know if we are being successful with that. Here's what we should expect at 1 year, at 3 years, at 5 years. And to do that in a way that isn't in the bowels of his or her office, but really have been constructed and co-authored with the community, so that when you go out and talk to people in school buildings, when you talk to principals, when you talk to classroom teachers, when you talk to parents, when you talk to civic leaders, and you say, what is the city's plan? What's the priorities of the school system? That they could repeat those back to us. And I'm not sure that to today, that is the case. And so we think, number one, somebody that can demonstrate to us they have the capacity to build that vision and to build community behind it. Number two, organizational and culture change expertise. So again, this is to say we are going through a period of great transition. I'd argue every urban school system in America is. The key is, can we find a leader who knows how to manage in a change environment? Because people who know how to manage in a change environment, they know that you have to sequence change. They know that you've got to do a couple of things well before you do the next. They don't want to just make change for change's sake. They understand that you have to build change on a platform of stability. And so somebody who has some expertise in managing an organization that has gone through or is going through deep change, I think would help the school system a great deal. Third is knowledge and expertise in student populations like ours. Now we talked quite a bit about what does that really look like. Does that mean the person has to come from a school district our size with our student population? Not necessarily. I mean, they could also come from an organization who serves the student population, or they may have some other way to plug into this. But if they don't have experience in some way with the kids we serve, we're not sure that ultimately the best of ideas will work. I mean, we serve a challenging student population, and having a leader who has knowledge and experience producing results with those kids is important. And then last, and is clearly the thing that sort of comes through all of the community survey and all of the independent research we did, is teacher talent and turnaround are two things we have to get right. Without it, nothing else is possible. And so we really need to be looking for somebody who can demonstrate real innovative thoughts and or a track record, around those two pieces. Now, we've described Superman, right? That person doesn't exist. There isn't a candidate in the country that will check every one of those boxes and be able to come in here and say, yes, I have done those things. But what we are saying is, and you'll see this in the leadership profile that we brought for your consideration, they need to be able to demonstrate with relative specificity ideas in all four of those areas. And they need to have a track record in at least two. To us, that protects you against hiring someone that sounds great, but actually doesn't have any actual working experience in enough of these areas. But it also manages the expectations that I don't know, and I would challenge any of you to find them too. I don't know anyone who can say they have a track record in all four. But detailed, specific ideas in all four areas, and a track record in at least two. So number 4 is that clearly, as you heard Janet talk about, and this is the hard thing to tell a search firm, it's hard to test or interview for this, but I think we have to try. We need to look for someone that beyond the specific skill set and qualities also just has a way about them that gravitates not toward the, well, this is the way it's always been done, but instead gravitates toward a little bit the third way idea of like, you can listen in a room for somebody who says, well, there's this way or this way. I think we want a leader who listens to those and then says, well, or here's an idea, maybe there's a way that takes a little from both. And so really trying to just interview for someone who has that ability to look at controversial and complex situations and think, is there maybe a third way nobody is thinking about that might be able to solve in a more creative way some of the challenges we face. So that is number 4. Number 5, recruiters should be directed to think beyond the traditional set of superintendents. We think it's a mistake as a group to say that we're trying to find a superintendent from a like-sized district. That really narrows the band of people, and I think takes off the table a lot of some of the more innovative folks that you may find. So that could mean, that you're willing to look at folks that might be a number 2 or a number 3 in an organization that are leading some of the more innovative work of that district. It might mean a superintendent of of a smaller district. For example, when the superintendent that was credited with a lot of the beginning of the turnaround of the Charlotte-Mecklenburg school system came in, he ended up being, by most accounts, a really strong leader, but he had never run a district that size. He had run a much smaller district. So our point is, just be open to that there's more than one way to fit that profile. Doesn't mean we shouldn't also look at sitting superintendents. We should. We just shouldn't close the door to others. Number 6, we spent a lot of time trying to build that list of like, where do you tell a search firm to start? This is both art and science, this list. We started to build the list by looking at 3 lists. We looked at one, okay, who are the urban school systems that have above average academic achievement? We say we want to be really strong academically. All right, so who is really strong academically? Okay, so we made that list. Then we said, okay, what about, where are the districts that are showing the greatest growth? And we looked at that in a couple of different ways because there's no perfect way to do that. So we looked at those who are showing growth overall, year over year. So it may be that they're not the best academically in an absolute sense, but they're showing real progress. And then we also looked at who is showing growth in subgroups. Because again, sometimes those aren't the same thing. And at the end of the day, we serve a majority-minority population. We serve a majority economically disadvantaged students and families. So people who are showing growth in those areas, that's worth taking note of. And then third, we all tried to sort of do our own looking around to say, okay, who is it that's at least talked about as being an innovator district, right? Sometimes people are an innovator district because they've done, sort of systemic innovations. Charlotte-Mecklenburg is talked about in that regard sometimes. Shelby County sometimes is talked about in that regard. Some others are maybe interesting because they've done some interesting innovative things in the areas that we think are worth looking at. So they've done a lot in DC around human capital, human relations, talent. In Tulsa, they've done a lot with early childhood. In Dallas, they've done a lot with English language learners. So we tried to sort of make that list too. Then we took it all and we looked at it and said, okay, what places pop up on more than one list? And that's how that list gets built. So, like I said, there's art and science to it. It isn't completely, a random list, but it is, built from the science and then some artistic overlay, I would say. But at least that's a place for a search firm to start. Number 7 is that we think that you did something really, really good last time in the public part of the search process when you interviewed final candidates. The town hall meeting style interviews were great. I can't find a single person who didn't think that was a terrific part of that, and we hope that you will continue that. We also tried to think what else could we do that could make that process even stronger. One is that, our suggestion is that we be really clear with candidates that they are expected to come with pretty specific ideas and feedback about what are their priorities going to be, what would that first year look like, how are they going to build that vision and plan, how are they going to engage the community, what things do they think are the 3 or 4 overarching priorities that the district has to do, and they should have done their homework to look at all the data and information and come informed in those conversations. And we weren't sure that that was as much of a hallmark of the last version. We think we can do better on that. Some of that is the search firm needs to be told to give every final candidate a detailed package and tell them that your expectation is that they come with ideas. Not the same as saying you have to come with a strategic plan in the interview, but you should have the outline of one. Number 3 in that is to also just make sure we try to identify collectively from our organizations just key questions that we felt were important to be asked during the interview process, whether that's in the town hall meeting style or in the board's interviews. We included that list of suggested questions in the report. And then last but not least, and this is one of many places where we hope you'll call on us again to help, we really felt like rather than the sort of but one day and done, bring them in, go through the series of interviews, and they're done at the end of the day, that we really ought to look at that not only on them selling us, but also us selling them, and we ought to treat that more like a recruiting trip, and we're willing to help on that. So make sure that they get to talk to others in the community. Make sure that they get to hear about other organizations doing really critical work here that make this an asset, this is a job that you would want. But also making sure that they come into the interview process with you guys having seen all of Nashville, not just what you read in the paper. And so we are going to put together some additional thoughts and stand ready. Several of us have agreed to work with you guys and just thinking about how can we really make those final candidate interviews a really rich, two-day experience that really sells them on Nashville and gives them a chance to sell us on them at the same time. Recommendation number 8, if we're serious about finding a top-notch leader, we got to be competitive with the marketplace to attract that talent. That's going to take some additional steps on our part to get there. That includes, number one, that we've got to, I'm sorry, I got ahead of myself. Number one, I think we got to address the base salary. We've got in your package a compensation analysis that was done by Arthur J. Gallagher with the support of the Chamber of Commerce. It's a really thorough and exhaustive look at peer districts. And I think what you're going to find is while we are in the middle of the pack, overall, when you look at those districts that have made hires in the last 2 years, we're not in the middle of the pack. We're below the average. And so I just think at the end of the day, you have to set a salary based on that person's experience and what their salary history is and all of those things. But I think what we are saying is if we really are trying to be competitive, we should be giving the direction to a search firm that salary is not going to be, the base salary isn't going to be an impediment. I mean, we ought to look at everyone and figure out the salary based on what they need to come here if we really like them. But let's not limit our search by an artificial limit on salary. The second thing is that as we think about the search, I think we have to own the reality that it's just coming out of, there's never a good time for these searches, but it's coming at a time where we've got elections upcoming. There's some degree of uncertainty that just always comes with an election. I think there are some steps you guys could take that help to just limit the impact of that and remove impediments during that time. So, things like strong contractual terms that might, that could be a longer than average severance clause. If so, that you can't, they're not going to be fired without cause in the first 2 years, something like that. We've given you a number of ideas in the report, but just trying to deal proactively and just take off the table anybody who's afraid to be a candidate because there's uncertainty, because I think there's just really easy things you could do to address that. The next piece is to consider some more creative compensation package elements. This is another place where you've got some real leaders sitting behind me who are willing and ready to help the board think about what that could be. But as an example, Vanderbilt provides tuition discount for their employees. Could there be other things that could be things that the community could offer? Other things that maybe haven't been part of our standard compensation package that would be easy enough to do that could just be further enticements. Use some of the folks back here who this is what they do all the time, and let them see if we can come up with some additional ideas that just sweeten the package. And then last but not least, we can't underscore it enough, and I know each of you believes it as well, everything that we do over the next few weeks to communicate a unified vision and a unified commitment to find someone great dramatically enhances our ability to recruit someone great. When people think that things are divisive or that there's not agreement or that there's too many different factions, it does not look like a fun place to come. We're at a great place where I think we're showing great unity. Everything any of us can do to underscore that in the coming weeks is critical. Recommendation number 9, I think this goes without saying. I think you guys are already doing a lot in this regard, but a strong leader is only part of the equation. That strong leader will only be successful if we're prepared to give them the resources and the leeway to come in here and develop that vision and strategic plan for the district. And that may mean some additional resources to be able to bring others in to help them build that plan. But our sense is, be it public or private support or both, there needs to be real support for a new leader to develop a really great strategic vision for this district. Number two, obviously, everything that can be done to strengthen the working relationship between the board and the administration. A good leader will never be effective if they are not your partners and you their partners. And then recommendation number 10, don't compromise on quality. Nashville has got too much going for it. The stakes are too high. We have too many kids and families riding on this. We ought to go forth with great speed, but if for whatever reason, we are not collectively seeing the quality of candidates that we believe is possible, we shouldn't compromise on that standard. So with those represent the 10 recommendations. And before we open it to Q&A, I wanted to just ask Renata Soto from Conexión Americas and David Williams from Vanderbilt to just make some closing remarks.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to meet with you on this special meeting tonight. We know that we have enjoyed our time together, even though it was a crunch time, and we are hopeful that the information and the recommendations that you're receiving tonight will be helpful in guiding you through that search. We want to just share a few closing remarks on behalf of our Search Advisory Committee. We first want to thank you for all you do. We know that sometimes your job is not very thanked all the time, and we know that you spend a lot of time, energy, and personal sacrifice on behalf of our children, and we thank you for the opportunity to engaging us to help you in this important process. So thank you for that opportunity. We know that in every recommendation you hear the voices not only of the people in the search committee, but the more than 5,000 people that responded to the community survey, and we hope that that compilation really helps summarize not only the unified voice that we are putting behind as you take on to the next steps. Many of us in the Search Advisory Committee are public school student parents. Myself, I have 2 children in metro schools. Many of us are also partners in schools through the nonprofits that we run or volunteer with. Certainly, many of us are also employers who depend on the children that are graduating from metro schools for making sure that our enterprises are thriving and that we're taking Nashville to the next place. Many of us are also embedded in the future of Nashville in many ways, and we know that you hear this a lot, but we truly believe that there's nothing more important that we can do as a city than make sure that this search is a successful process. And so we want to make sure that you know that for us, while we are ending our official commitment to provide recommendations to you, we hope that this is just the beginning and not the end of that process. As you heard, individually and collectively, all of us would like to collaborate in any other ways that we can as you take the next steps, and that certainly that you know that is beyond the group that participated, but many Nashvillians that have paid attention, followed, and contributed to the recommendations that we're presenting to you. We truly believe that Nashville has done amazing things in the past when we are presenting with big challenges, how we responded to the flood, how we defeated an English-only referendum, and I do believe that many people in Nashville feel that the success, that this search and what comes out of it, and the support that we all want to provide to the leader that we will bring to this community to guide us through that vision that Shannon spoke is really one of those moments for Nashville, and that we as individual Nashvillians are committed to make it a success, not only the search, but what happens once that you bring that leader here, and that we want to make sure that we are the best Nashvillians that we can be, not only because we help you recruit that superwoman that we're trying to bring, but also because we understand that the job will begin the moment that that person becomes part of our community, and that in all the ways in which that we can be supportive to your vision and that leader's vision, that we hope that you know that we're here and that this is just the beginning of our work and our support to your process. David?
Thank you. I want to also echo what Renata said, and then thank you. And many of you, or many people here, will know me as the athletic director at Vanderbilt. Others might remember me as the general counsel for 12 years at Vanderbilt and all the legal issues that I handled. And probably most of you know me as Gail Williams' husband. Yeah. And some of you probably have been around town in my Motown classes, but you may not know is that I was a public school teacher in Detroit for 10 years. It was my first job out of college. And I was raised in that city, and I went to the public schools in Detroit. And I had a mother and a father who were public school teachers. So this was and is my family business. And I also saw a city that let its school system go down. That's Detroit. And we all know what happened to Detroit after that. And so I then moved off to Columbus, Ohio, and I actually saw Columbus struggling with many of the same things that Detroit had struggled with unsuccessfully, and many of the things that we are struggling with. And Columbus didn't rise to the occasion either. And so as I moved to Nashville and I saw what was happening in Nashville, I became very, very concerned about what's happening. And I want to say to you all, Renata has said much of it, but I want to say to you, this was a very interesting experience for me. Because when I was asked to serve on this, I really didn't know what to expect. And I didn't know what the outcome would be, obviously. And all of us have 1,000 things to do, and it's like, well, do you really have time to put this in, all the time that's necessary for this? And so we go to a meeting, and there's 17 of us. And I knew some of them, like Renata, and some of them I didn't. And as we talked in that first meeting, the concept of a Superman or a Superwoman came really, really quick. Really, really quick. And in fact, I went home and said, I don't think I'm going back. Because I don't think we can do this. Because there were 17 people that each of us had very strong interests. And I know the passion that Renata has for English as a second language people and new Americans. I know what Sonny talks about in the meeting about the kids that have been forgotten. And then I listened to Judge Calloway to talk about kids that never get to where I'm at because they end up in her courtroom. And even though you had 17 people that brought different things in there, it became very clear that there was a unifying opinion in there. Check the egos at the door. Check the self-interest at the door. This is about something bigger than us. And there was one goal. We want the best for the kids of this city. And so everybody put that thing secondary to say, okay, we can do this. And I'm here to tell you, I'm a little different. I mean, I changed a little. I actually think Superman and Superwoman are doable with our help. We can do Superman, Superwoman things with the right person with our help. You guys got a hard job. Actually, I thought our job was hard. But we're passing on what we've determined to you, and you have a hard job. But never forget, your job is probably the most important job in this city. Most important job in this city. Here's another piece that I'm proud of being, probably the most thing I'm proud of being. I'm proud of being the parent of Erica, David, Samantha, and Nicholas. That's the title I like the most. Because that's my legacy. That's what I leave to the future. What do we leave to the future of our city, of our community, of our country? It's the children. There's no second doubt about it. There's no alternative to this. There's no other way. There's no least intrusive way of getting it done. The only thing we have to give to each other is a sound education. I think of my two grandfathers. One of them a sharecropper who basically had 4 sons, and he said to the owner of the land down in Mississippi, he said, 2 of my boys will work in the fields and 2 of them are going to go to college. My grandfather had a 5th grade education. Fortunate for me, the youngest of those kids was my dad. And my other grandfather, who was a Baptist minister in Mississippi, and he used to tell me, what's important is what's in your pocket. And I said, Daddy Wallace, what do you mean by what's in my pocket? And he used to have a little watch pocket. And he said, what I got in my watch pocket, they can't get from me. And he said, what I got in my watch pocket and what you need to put in yours is education. So, I'll close with this. I hire people too. I have to go out and hire football and basketball and baseball coaches. And it's tough because you can get it wrong. And I consider it to be hard. But it's nothing compared to the importance of what you do. Because if I make a mistake, we lose a game. You make a mistake, we lose a kid. Thank you for the opportunity, and as Renata and everybody said, we're here to help you. God bless you, and let's go get this done.
Ooh, I feel like I joined in the meeting. Passing a collection plate. So we're happy to any of us answer any questions you have, and I'd also just call your attention to among the reams of paper you have for your pleasure reading. There is a tab that does have the a suggested leadership profile in it that takes all those recommendations, but it also builds off of what you guys put together previously in terms of a leadership profile. But you also have that. I want to say I'm doing it off of memory. I think it's like maybe tab 4 or something like that. 3, sorry.
Bless you.
But we're happy to answer questions. Start on this end? Start on that end? I can. Start on that end.
Okay, so, first of all, I just would like to thank the search committee. Obviously, you all put a lot of time and energy into it, particularly the holiday season, which is duly noted, and thank Shannon for her leadership on this. I'm glad to hear the comments tonight because I truly feel that this is a unified effort, it is a collaborative effort, and I'm excited that we're heading in that direction. As far as questions go, I've got a lot of comments, but I don't think we're at that point yet. So we've had some discussion about search firms and next steps, and the board as a whole has really not had those discussions, and so I am wondering what the next steps might be and who would be engaged or is already engaged in identifying or selecting the search firms, whether we are looking at candidates, where we are in that process, and how we envision the next steps.
So, I mean, obviously, a charge to this committee as a whole was not to go out and build a list of candidates per se, nor to hire a search firm. I can tell you that the Public Education Foundation, alongside this work, has begun that process of trying to identify strong search partners. And, should the board wish to pursue that, we believe we could help you to hire a much stronger search partner than you had last time. Someone who really knows recruiting, not just, the more typical superintendent search firm model that's really, appears from the outside at least to be more of an application process and a recruiting effort. But I think that's really a decision for the board to make how you move forward. I can tell you that from the Public Ed Foundation's point of view, we're delighted and happy to walk with you and to provide help, assistance, and leadership there if you are so inclined. And we do think that having a very strong search partner and a different kind of search partner, I mean, this is a much harder
director search, it's a recruiting job. It's not, a lot of times when you're replacing a superintendent, it's not as much of a recruitment job, it's more of a maintenance job and a filling of an existing position. I think this is really recruiting a very different kind of leader, and so my only hope is that whatever the decision of the board is tonight, that you lean on some of us on the outside who could be put both resources, time, and expertise toward that, and that we try to find a strong search partner that really knows recruiting, not just search in general.
How do we identify that firm, I guess is the question. I mean, how do we identify the firms that have a strong track record in recruitment?
So, and I think that's probably, I'd be delighted to sit down and talk with you guys about what we at least think some of those firms might be. But I think we have a running thought of just some of those folks, and we're happy to put you in touch with them and let you talk to them. And I'm happy to help in that regard in the next couple of days. Is that anything?
That's it.
Okay.
Okay, I just want to say thank you, Shannon and Rich and the rest of the committee. I'm really inspired by Vice Chancellor Williams' words there at the end about what we have at stake, so I appreciate that. And I think most of my questions, I guess, will be for us on what those next steps are, just as we go around.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to say, sometimes things happen for a reason, and maybe what happened last year happened for a reason because we're at the dawn of a much brighter conversation than we were before, in my opinion. So I just want to say thank you to the mayor, the vice mayor, the entire search advisory committee, including the foundation. I think we've got a profound opportunity, the first time in nearly a decade, to have the mayor, the vice mayor, the council, the community, the school board all rowing in the same direction. So I'm really optimistic. I have questions that, Dr. Gentry, they're probably better posed in a search committee meeting, but I just kind of want to make sure that whatever the next steps are, we have a very clear timeline laid out. We know kind of what we're aiming for in terms of this, a target range of the size of a slate of candidates, and that each of us, has, very clear visibility into, whatever happens next with a search firm or other partners. But I don't have any questions. I thank you. It's a very impressive body of work. It's done in a very short period of time, so thank you for giving up your holidays and working through Snowmageddon and everything else that you did to get this to us on time.
Again, just an incredible thanks for each and every person on this committee. I say that very sincerely. I know it was a lot of hard work, and I really am very appreciative, and I'm really touched by the fact that so many of you want to help us with this huge endeavor. And it is Mr. Williams said it best, it's the most important decision that we'll make probably in our lifetime. And it has such a reach for so many families and so many students in our district, and so I am incredibly appreciative of each and every one of you and all the hard work, and like Mr. Pinkston said, Snowmageddon and the Christmas holidays. So just a sincere thank you for everything that you've done.
Thank you, Shannon, and the full committee.
Yeah.
Thank you. Shannon, thank you, and all the committee, and also each of the presentations tonight were very inspiring. And, we've been thinking about this. We've been doing this now for over a year. 2 years. It seems like it. And I don't want a good director. I don't want an outstanding director. I don't even want just an excellent director. I want the best director of schools across the U.S. and maybe farther than that. And we do have some good things going on in this district, and we can build on those things. And I so appreciate the survey and how that came together and showed the unity that we have in Nashville. And while we're talking about the good things, we also know that we have challenges. And this is the most important decision we will make as a board for the 4 years and 2 years and
2 months,
8 years, and that we've served on the board. So
I feel like we're on the right track. I feel like the path is somewhat clear, and I feel very hopeful. Yeah.
Well, I too am very appreciative and certainly feel that we have the support of the entire community on this. So we will move forward in record speed, hopefully, and move towards getting an excellent superintendent. So thank you again for your time. I don't know all of you, but it's good to know that people from different walks of life have stepped up to the plate. Very appreciative.
I would first like to say thank you to all of you for all of this work that you've done, and not to take anything from what you've done as a group and also the community. But when we sat down as a group a year or so ago, some of those same things that you guys came up with, we came up with as a group. They were very similar. So it makes me feel good to know that we as a group are in alignment with the community as well as you, the group of you. In addition, I would say that if we could just continue to, or if we can, we were very unified, honestly, at the end of the search at the end of whenever was it, September, July. If we can keep that unity, continue with that unity mindset and take all of those recommendations that Mr. Williams shared with us, I think we can get through this and be very successful in the end. And thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you. It's so funny, so not only through Snowmageddon, but you're here during the middle of a tornado. Appreciate you. I know that there's, I think everybody behind that second row were part of the committee, but if you all could just stand for me, I would like to just say, again, thank you. And if you could just introduce yourselves, just in any order you choose.
Ed Thompson, Chair of NOAA, that organized with Action at Hope.
Rita McDonald, Nashville Chamber. I'm actually here standing in for Mark Hill.
Sonny Dixon.
Kristen McGrainer, Sunbrook Academy.
I'm Robin Wall at the Principal McGavick High School.
Woohoo! Yeah. I am Stephanie Spear, and I am the chair for the Director's Parent Advisory Council, and I also have 3 students in Metro Schools, special needs, typical, and advanced.
I'm Bill Carpenter. I'm the chairman of the board and chief executive officer at Life Point Health.
We already met.
Yeah, we got you.
They know me.
Ludi N. Wallace, president of the Nashville branch of the NAACP.
Thank you so much. You know, I heard in our sermon this Sunday, the pastor was talking about designations that people bandy about with no real, evidence of it. We talk about things that are historic or world-class, and I would submit that I think what we have done here is pretty historic with regards to what it is we're trying to accomplish. And as I look across that group, and some of you, most of you, I know, and the commitment that you have for education and the commitment that you display in your respective areas of your lives, that we have pulled together a world-class group, and I cannot thank you all enough. Now, David, this does not preclude you from applying. And so having done this in a short period of time, I believe the gauntlet has been thrown down for us to be able to pull together a timeline that actually respects the commitment that you all have made to this effort so far. So if I can get a motion.
Okay. Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we accept the recommendation of the Search Advisory Committee, including the leadership profile, and ask that the Public Education Foundation to assist the board in developing a recruitment process that will result in the delivery of a slate of director candidates fitting the leadership profile.
Motion made and second. Any comments? Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Please go home. Thank you very much. Can I adjourn the meeting now?
Yes.
Thank you. Swim on out of here.